Okay, let's dive into this. Your sources open with a really powerful image, right? Ultimate judgment, this grand white throne, books being opened. You see it in ancient prophecies, apocalyptic visions. But they jump right into a fascinating question. Who exactly is sitting on that majestic throne? I mean, Daniel and John, they both describe these divine throne rooms, but the figure presiding, well, it can seem a little ambiguous sometimes.
It really can. And what's fascinating, like you said, is how these key texts, written centuries apart, they zero in on this huge event. Yet they present this intriguing question about who precisely is the judge. So for this deep dive, we'll explore that using your sources to really understand these visions, the judge's identity, and what it tells us about divine justice itself.
Great. So your material first takes us to Daniel, chapter 7, verses 9 and 10. He describes the Ancient of Days, clothing white as snow, hair like pure wool, usually understood to be the Father, right?
That's the common understanding, yes. And the sources highlight something important here. This vision happens before the Son becomes incarnate, before he's a visible human figure.
Okay, right. That timing is crucial.
Exactly. Daniel's hinting at something specific there. Then your sources immediately link this to later in the same chapter, Daniel 7, verses 13 to 14. This is where one, like a son of man, who represents the Son, approaches the Ancient of Days, the Father.
And receives dominion.
Everlasting dominion, yeah, and a kingdom. So you see a relationship unfolding. Then, fast forward centuries later, you get John in Revelation 20, verses 11-12. He describes the great white throne, all the dead are judged before it, books are opened, including the book of life. And
that's where it gets a bit fuzzy textually, doesn't it? Some translations just say God on the throne in Revelation 20. Others are more general, like one seated on the throne.
That ambiguity is there.
It really adds to the mystery of who's actually, running the show at that moment.
It does, but then your sources bring in a really key clarification from other texts. While those early visions had that ambiguity, later scriptures, specifically John 5.22 and 5.27, they show a kind of delegation.
The delegation. How so?
Well, they state very clearly that the Father has entrusted all judgment to the Son. So the Son is acting in the Father's place, basically. He inherits the Father's authority, his name even, so his judgment is, in essence, the Father's judgment.
Ah, okay. So the source kind of resolves the ambiguity that way.
It argues that way, yes. It suggests the Son is the one on the throne during this judgment period, which is still happening before the final completion, before creation is presented back to the Father. So whether it's Father or Son visually, the source argues, the authority is unified. It doesn't change worship or obedience.
Got it. So we sort of tackled the who's on the throne, but your sources then get into something I think even more profound, how this judgment works. It's not just did you do it or not. The books are open, yes, but what kind of justice? Your material talks about judging based on motive and the degree of wrongdoing. That feels different.
It's incredibly precise, and that precision is vital according to your sources. They give a really good example. Think about hating someone versus actually murdering them.
Yep.
Even if someone feels intense hatred, if there's a good motive, maybe the internal struggle, the will not to act on it that prevents the actual murder, well, the judgment reflects the hatred, the intention, but not the act of murder itself. God's justice sees the difference.
Wow. So why is that distinction so important? What does it prevent from happening? Why does divine justice need that level of nuance?
Well, the argument in your sources is pretty compelling if there wasn't that differentiation. If all sin, regardless of intent or degree, was punished identically, creatures might completely misunderstand God's justice. They might misunderstand his love even. And potentially that could leave room for sin to somehow continue or be justified in a flawed way.
So this careful, balanced approach is actually part of the learning process for creation.
Exactly. It allows created beings to truly learn, to internalize, and eventually embody God's righteousness. It's part of moving towards a future state where sin itself isn't just punished, but its possibility is removed.
It sounds like this whole intricate judgment process is tied into a much bigger picture. A grand plan for creation, leading to its ultimate completion. Your sources mention the Son's reign continuing until all enemies, even death, are put under his feet. That's 1 Corinthians 15, right?
That's right, verses 25 and 26. It's all part of this grand tapestry. So after all sin is dealt with, after death itself is destroyed, the last enemy, then the Son presents the perfected, completed creation back to the Father. And that's when, as Corinthians 15.24 says, the Father becomes all in all.
Meaning God's direct presence just permeates everything, fully realized.
Fully realized, yes. The whole structure of creation, as your sources lay it out, seems designed for this journey, for creatures to learn about God, not just intellectually, but through experience, to freely choose grace, and to have their free will, which starts out imperfect, gradually perfected as they understand God's love, especially as revealed through the cross.
Okay, so we've walked through these really deep visions of judgment. We've looked at who might be the judge, the Father or the Son, or both in a sense. And we've explored this incredibly nuanced idea of divine justice, differential punishment, all fitting into God's ultimate plan for creation.
Mm-hmm. And thinking about all that raises, I think, an important question for you, for anyone listening. If God really orchestrated a creation where free will matures through experience, where his love is ultimately shown through sacrifice and victory over death, what might that imply about the journey of personal growth and understanding within your own life? How does that resonate with your own experiences?